Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Furnal Equinox Open Forum this Sunday afternoon. I want to thank all of you who are joining us this afternoon, and we're really looking forward to sharing further details with you today about how we're doing, the decisions that we've made over the past few weeks with regards to our convention and what our next steps forward are. We are in the we actually have taken your questions as part of this session this afternoon, and we're certainly looking forward to answering those. Before we get into that, we have a few things that we want to share first and foremost, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Skani. I'm the president of Anthropomorphic Events of Ontario, the organization that runs Furnal Equinox. And I'll throw over to my other two panelists to introduce themselves as well.
Hey folks, Draculion here. I'm the Director of Experience for Furnal Equinox. I'm also on the board for Anthropomorphic Events of Ontario.
And I am Aiden. I am the chair of Furnal Equinox, here representing the event, and also on the board of AEO. So yeah, looking forward to working with Drac and Scanny to answer your questions.
Excellent. Before we get into questions, we do have a few kind of key overarching points that we want to share, and I'll throw it to Drac to take the lead on that piece, as well as some housekeeping too.
Great, thanks so much, Scanny. I think this has definitely been a difficult week for everyone, and we're happy that FE's management and Anthropomorphic Event of Ontario's board. We had to make a couple decisions with the news changing, and everything is rapidly evolving as things go along. And the decision to cancel Furnal Equinox 2020 was one, we need to make sure that we had to keep all of you guys safe, right? And it not only keeps you safe, it keeps us safe, and it keeps everyone else around us in society. I can definitely say with certainty, we're not going anywhere. We're super grateful for all the cooperation we've had, all the support from the community, from our partners, and our decision 3 weeks ago. That's helped us through it, and we're so happy to have that from you guys. And we want to be there for you through these challenging times, where we can help support you through any means we can, whether it be virtual connections, help supporting our vendors and whatnot, as they've also been impacted and others throughout our community. We are definitely planning for the future. We've got next year's date, and Furnal Equinox 2021 is scheduled for March 19th to the 21st, and we've had those dates set in stone. And some good news for those of you who are looking forward to returning with us. An exciting part is that we are going to be expanding into even more space in the Weston Harbor Castle. We are looking at picking up the dockside area, which is the basement on the hotel side of the venue. And we are indeed looking at re-inviting our 2020 guests of honor back, and Yare and Dr. Wildlife, to return to us. And we will definitely be keeping that theme, which I know a lot of you guys have been asking about. Yes, we definitely wanted that theme too, so we're going to be going with that. In the meantime, we're going to continue to support our public health leaders and what they ask of us as an event. And for you guys, our ask is please stay home. Only go out when you have to, and practice social distancing, self-isolating if you're sick. Take care of yourselves, take care of the others around you, and we're hoping to make a big community impact here. And the sooner we all work together as a team to overcome this, the sooner we can all return back to normal, and you know have the chance that we can come back together as a community and go back to regular operations at Furnal Equinox. So some general housekeeping just before we kind of dive into a lot of stuff. You can submit your questions by going to slido.com. We've got our links in Twitter. We've made posts to Telegram, so where you can go to post your questions. We also have the hashtag FEOpenForum. You can upvote downvote existing questions that you're interested in, interesting to hear feedback on. And for everyone who submitted so far, thank you so much. We're super excited to get into those, and I'm just ready to jump on one already. And we're going to start hopefully with the most upvoted and work our way down that list and see how many we can get through within the hour. There's some duplicate questions we've already identified, and in that case, we'll try to answer or briefly summarize what's already kind of been said for that question so that we can move through and make sure that we answer as many as we can within the time we have.
Thanks, Drac. Just to provide some clarification on how to use Slido, so you can go to the website Slido, SLIDO.com. When you go on the website, you can enter a hashtag there, FE Open Forum, and that'll take you to the question page where you can ask your own question or upvote the ones that you'd like to hear the most. And also as well, we do have a YouTube chat going just to have conversations so forth going. Just bear in mind that if you want us to respond to a particular question, just make sure to direct it through Slido, as we may not have eyes on the YouTube chat all the time. I also want to acknowledge Ronnie, who has done some fantastic work over the past hour in getting the stream up and running. And he's also helping us moderate the discussion today. So a big thank you to Ronnie, who supports with communications and hotel with Furnal Equinox, for all of his hard work in getting us going today. With that in mind, we're going to flip it over to questions, and I'm going to share my screen to facilitate that. The first question that we have up today is, because the province canceled all events after you canceled, were the fees still paid? Also, why were refunds only offered to people in special circumstances? Aidan, did you want to take this one?
Sure can. 1 second. I think we have that in our notes.
We did kind of,
yeah.
we knew that these questions were coming, so we've done a little bit of pre-prep. Hope we understand.
Yeah. So I think probably the easiest question this comes towards, we've kind of generalized some of these together. The first one was related to the cancellation and the questions that we'd raised about the potential for bankruptcy, et cetera. So just to talk to that, the vendor partners that we had mentioned in our recent announcements is that we've actually had a really good relationship with them over the past several years, and in addition to that, this year they were very accommodating, working with us considering the circumstances. We are certainly not the only event impacted by these circumstances. We don't have nearly so significant a budget as like Microsoft or other of those big businesses that are canceling their events preemptively. But our partners were very accommodating to work with us to basically say, look, we're not going to be giving you the full penalties that we normally would in a typical circumstance. So the best way that we found for attendees to support us financially, if we are running into is to basically defer your registration to 2021. That requires no action on your part. Your registration will automatically be looped to 2021's event. That has already happened. So we're going to be giving you the value of the event, even though it's not actually going to be in 2020 this year. If you're in a position to do so, you're welcome to donate your registration to the event, which we can which I think we'll comment a little bit more. But yeah, it's definitely a appreciated gesture. We do also recognize that people may be in difficult situations right now, though. And as such, while we had initially announced that we would only be providing refunds to people with a more specific case, that was as we were figuring out the circumstances and how we were sitting. It was a very um, it was a very interesting time for us to figure out what the impact of this would be on us, and we're comfortable at this point saying that, if you need to contact us for a refund, please do so. We're not currently restricting those, and so we are definitely more open to that than we were in the initial days. If you are contacting us about a refund, please provide your confirmation number or your name and date of birth, or some things that we can look your registration up for. So just things that will help us with our process.
Okay. Thank you, Aiden.
Mhm.
Okay, I can mark that. This is my first time playing with this, so please bear with me. I think we can note that is successfully answered. Okay, next question. Has any consideration been put into a larger Furnal solstice? Maybe turn it into a mini convention of 2 days. Sure, I'm happy to take this one. Our priority over the past couple of weeks has really been to make sure that we're doing right by all of you, by all of our attendees, and just make sure that we can make an orderly transition from FE 2020 to future events that we run. We definitely want to keep Furnal Solstice and other such events going. They play a really valuable role in our community in bringing people together. And certainly as the current gathering restrictions become loosened or lifted altogether, we definitely want to make sure that we have opportunities to come together to celebrate and, get the face time that we've really sorely been lacking over the last little while. That said, we know that there are definitely some restrictions in place as well. And we really don't know the timeline of how long those restrictions are going to last. We're talking about events in kind of the 6 to 9 month timeline, and we really want to get a better sense of what sort of public health directives are going to be in place over that timeline before we commit to such. I believe there was another question that was asked to the effect of, how would you consider doing, a weekend event at the Western or something to that effect? And that would also kind of fall under that condition as well. A couple of other things that we want to consider as well. We're mindful that any sort of larger scope event, one that goes over a weekend, that has specific asks in terms of convention space and so forth, those require the availability of staff and volunteers. We would be working on a much shorter timeline in pulling those together, so we're certainly mindful of that. The other thing that we're considering as well, and this also was something that influenced our decision between just moving FE 2020 to later in the year versus just moving over to FE 2021, and that is the fall event calendar. We anticipate that there are going to be a lot of events that want to move into the fall space, and that's going to make it even more crowded in terms of furry events. We also are considering our peer Canadian events as well, such as Canference, such as Camp Feral, that already have established dates at this point. And we don't want to necessarily be cannibalizing their attendance or interfering in any way with their operations. So that's the reason why we're taking a wait and see approach with regards to that fall and early winter timeline at this point. I'm hoping that answers the question. I just realized I had the screen shared for that whole time period. So hopefully that answers that. Next question. Recent projections estimate the pandemic could last as long as 2 years and result in 3,000 to 15,000 deaths in Ontario, as per CBC News. What does this mean for Furnal Equinox? Aiden, did you want to answer that?
Absolutely, I can. That's of course we predicted them in a certain order. Now I got to find them. Okay, here we go. So yeah, we were actually aware of this news conference, and we're quite familiar with the estimates that are being made by Premier Ford and the people that he's got on this particular issue. The the thing that's worth noting from that statement also is the potential impact that could have been in place if these specific preventative measures were not made. So, I mean, we're looking at the current directives, what could have happened, the potential 100,000 deaths that Ontario could be facing if none of these plans were put in place, if none of these preventative measures were started, and the fact that we are actively trying to be part of that to discourage the potential loss of life and keeping our community respecting these decisions is definitely, I think, relevant to point out. That said, our intention is to continue to follow these restrictions and such as they change. Now, of course, the government is only making decisions in a 2 or 4 week cycle at this point in time, so it's very much up in the air as far as how is this actually going to play out. But it is to our awareness that this entire pandemic could last for a full 2 years, if not more or less, or depending on how things actually play out. Um, in the meantime, currently, we do have a pre-existing contract. We have mentioned our dates. The fact that our venue is booked for 2021. We have our guests of honor. We have our intention to keep the theme. And assuming that the policies are viable for us to run an event at that time, we will be running an event. We will keep you updated with any updates that are shared with us or with anything that changes in that plan. But as far as we're concerned, we're definitely aiming to make that next year event a thing that is going to be successful and is going to be as awesome as we hoped that this year would be. Um, the one point that I wanted to make particular note of is that this has changed convention running on a whole. This coronavirus situation, this COVID-19, has already changed how conventions prepare for events. It's already changed how we prepare for events. We found ourselves in a reactive position to a degree this year to find new plans and new processes that would suit a event that was aimed to run even in a very unsure time. We have sourced personal protective equipment for selective usage. We've sourced we've sourced different signage. We've also sourced um, s- sterilization. Well, what the can't remember it. Yeah, so we've sourced different preventative measures that we will likely intend to, and almost definitely will intend to continue using next year and the year after that. Even if the pandemic suddenly disappears next week, which it's not going to, but like assuming that happened, I would want to go forward with 2021 with the intention of still having those resources available to attendees, still having them available to staff. Um, Basically, we are changing how we look at self-care and cleanliness at events in general. And I think that's not just true of us, but also of other events. So I think this is a good thing um, through a bad circumstance. I think
Hey,
that's it,
thank
Scanny.
you. Yep,
Yeah.
appreciate the response. Thank you. Uh, next up, we got that answered. As a panel host for the canceled 2020 convention, are we having the same panel schedule for the next convention, or will this be completely redone? Drac is Director of Experience, and I believe programming reports up to him, so I think he's well placed to answer this one.
Yeah, so I think I'll give the short answer first. The short answer is no, we are not going to have the same panel schedule. We are going to be look at redoing everything. And to go a little bit more in depth and give the long answer to that is we had a couple panelists who specifically identified that they could make it to 2020, but not to 2021. So they unfortunately had to back out, and this means that a couple of the programming slots were freed up, and we want to make sure that we've got a broad and robust experience for everybody to enjoy. Um, Another point to make is we had actually been working on 2021 before 2020 was even going to happen. And we were looking at new resources and new processes to help make things go a lot smoother and improve kind of the experience for both attendees and panelists. So we're looking at maybe being a little bit stricter on what's going to be submitted, but in turn, we're looking at a system called Sessionize that makes it so you submit your panel, it goes through a review process, which you get to see everything there. And when your panel is approved, you get immediate feedback there. And we're hoping to get this new process finalized, hopefully in the near future, in the next month or two, and send an email out to previous panelists to inform them of both, hey, here's what's going on, and here's how you can reapply with the panel idea that you'd already submitted, and as well as maybe you've given a brief introduction to the process. And we recognize that it's a huge ask to kind of everybody to resubmit their panels and go through the process again, but we want to kind of involve everybody in the process, make sure that it's fair across the board, and that people give us feedback on how the new system is going to work so that we can make the process even smoother going forward. Um, and now that people are going to be aware, we're definitely encouraging folks to look at your existing panel ideas, flush them out, have a nice clear description of what everything's going to be, bit of an overview and deep dive into what you've got. We know that year over year people are like, I want this specific time slot at the most desired time, and it's a super competitive time slot, and I know folks are like, I want like 5 p.m. or 3 p.m. or something like that on Friday at peak hours. And we believe that if people want that, they're going to have to earn it on merit and effort, and we're not just going to be giving it out freely. And this is for the benefit of everybody here. So it's big and important that people put in the effort for their panels. And as a side note, 2020 was going to be the last year of our curated panelist program initiative. We are going to be scrapping that due to we haven't been having a lot of positive results with it. We've been having a lot more negative than positive, so we're going to focus directly on the panel submissions themselves rather than the panelist. And with 2021 bringing that new hotel contract in and having dockside means we're going to probably be shuffling rooms around and try and rearrange and expand what we can offer for the convention. um, it was very unfortunate that we were unable to have the space for particular panels, like wide open, big wide open rooms where certain panels required that kind of space that we couldn't provide, and we're looking at making sure that that's going to happen this year.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Drac. Okay. Next question. Have you considered the Metro Toronto Convention Center with the Intercontinental Hotel as another location for more space with similar accessibility? Aiden, I think, Aiden, if
Yes.
you want to take this one.
I found it. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm getting the swing of this. All right. Yeah. So we have considered convention centers as part of our venue evaluation. What we basically, every time it comes due for us to sign a new contract with our venue, we take a look and we say, okay, is the current venue suiting our needs? We've done this several times in my tenure with FE, and we've made the decision to make an advancement when it's been either impractical to stay at the current hotel or it's been financially feasible to evaluate a larger space. And the Westin currently is our home, and it probably will be for quite some time. Because of the point that Scanny mentioned and regarding the dockside rooms, we do actually have more space to grow at the Westin. So we are not currently looking to change homes and anywhere in the near future. But it's one of those things where it's always kind of back of our minds as part of the evaluation process. Metro Toronto Convention Center is one of the it is the biggest convention center in Toronto proper. It is also proportionally expensive, and we want to keep our event as inexpensive as possible for our attendees for as long as possible. So it's definitely something that has been considered. Are we going to be moving to it anytime soon. Not currently, but it is definitely something that over the next few years we're going to be evaluating how much we grow, how our space usage goes, and figuring out a plan as far as how to when to make that move, or when that we may be considering to make that move in the future. It is definitely something that will require a fair bit of advanced work, and we'll be able to make that notification probably a year or two ahead of time, because what we do as far as agreements are concerned, we usually sign 2-year agreements just to keep security with our current hotel, so that we don't like go suddenly lose our hotel without awareness. So we'll do an advance agreement well in advance of having to make that change. So if we do actually make that switch, we'll be letting people know as early as possible.
I will note as well, just to add on to Aiden's response, that evaluating FE's growth and figuring what we need in terms of a venue over the next 5 years is actually it's actually a board goal. It's actually kind of a board strategic goal that we met when we first met as a new board in the fall of this year. So it is definitely something that not just from the FE operational perspective, but also from the AEO strategic perspective, we're really interested in. But yeah, we're definitely wanting to make sure that we have the right venue at the right price at the right time. Okay. Next question. Is there a place for someone who may want to donate money to help FE if they have any outstanding bills that need to be paid? Sorry, I'm just trying to find the appropriate question here.
It's me again.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead, Aiden.
Yeah, no worries. So this kind of dovetails into another question that we had about, if we wanted to donate money to FE to ensure it would stay open, where would the money go specifically, that kind of thing. We are currently very sensitive about asking for donations ourselves. Based on the discussion, like some of the points we've already made about our vendor cooperation being quite good this year, we are actually in a position where we're not dealing with we're not dealing with costs over and above what we would have expected. There's a whole bunch of bills we don't have to pay because we're not actually putting on the events, so rentals and such are not happening. But we're not so dire, and I think some of the phrasing of saying, "Oh, well, we could go bankrupt if we don't do this right," may have made people a little nervous about that, and I completely understand and respect that. We are actually doing not too badly right now. We will lose a little bit of funds as far as our pre-registrations already all come in. Well, not all of it, because we will be opening for registration for this coming year very soon, and that will still provide us some funds. But it is very curious time for us to make a good estimate of things. Um, there are definitely better places for us to see that money go right now. We have uh, a lot of other things, like, for instance, Hobbit's Tea, which efforts from a virtual event, for those of you who were aware of it, the one that was run by Eva Chu and Nick Knack, the Keep Calm, Carry Con event that kind of popped up in the span of a week. Um, Focused very much on distributing information about our Hobbits Tea charity, who we had committed to providing charity donations to this past event. We were fortunate enough that there was a big rallying cry from the community to try and push that, and the charity that has been pushed towards that event has been touching and significant in a lot of ways. Um, it's been a great place for us to see that money go, especially because these charities are dealing with expenses that we don't have. The care of animals and the care of and the volunteer work, and especially given the circumstances that we're in right now, is a cost that just doesn't disappear. And as much as they can be like an actual housing facility might be deemed not safe to work at, it's definitely something where the animals still need their key food, sleep, shelter, etc., to survive. So the efforts gone towards that are very significant. I do want to kind of sidebar a little bit to this, because this is where we specifically mentioned the virtual event. FE wanted to support, or at least I wanted to. I believe Effie kind of agreed with my mentality on that, but I'm speaking for myself here. Wanted to support the virtual event that was happening, and I'm seeing a lot more virtual events popping up in the community. Things like the Omegle nights, things like people meeting up on Minecraft servers, people meeting up on other events, and these things are significant. And I'm seeing a lot of these sparking up given the circumstances. There's definitely events happening in different places where either an event didn't happen, similar to us. And such. I am interested to see what the Toronto community comes up with this. I'm interested to see what Canada in general comes up with this. And we're going to do our best to, I think, rebroadcast these kinds of events that are looking like they're going to try and put on like a togetherness approach, or represent different funds, and even to donate to more medical type things, which I'm sure is a current focus of a lot of people. So we've come together as communities before, and for the purposes of ALS support. I'm sure that there are people who are planning things like this, and such, to help support other people as well. From an FE perspective, with what can you do for FE? Again, donating your registration or re-registering for next year's convention is best. A lot of our expenses depend on pre-registration, so we have a con that's relatively packed up and ready to go, but that comes out of the pre-registration fees. So we're able to do refunds, we're able to do rollovers, all that sort of thing. But having you register for next year, or even donating your registration, means that there's not as much risk to us. Not necessarily money in our bank accounts, which I appreciate that people are willing to make those donations, but it's more so making sure that we don't have any concerns about being able to operate 2021 as effectively as we would a normal year, which will certainly not be. So I think that speaks to the question for the most part, Scanny.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the ALS example.
Yeah.
As some people have acknowledged on Twitter already, this is actually the 1-year anniversary of Dog Bomb's passing. So I wanted to take a moment during the session just to acknowledge the contributions that he's had to this fandom, and the charitable and the spirit of charitable giving and support that he's also spread across as well, that I think we can all be really proud of. So we miss you, Dog Bomb. We miss you. Um, also worth noting, and I haven't shared with the people in this room, but the charitable efforts that have been made through events like Keep Calm Con, etc. I actually got a total from Hobbits Tea the other day, and we have actually raised around $2,500 from various streams over the course of the Keep Calm weekend and some other stuff after the fact. So, and this is just like, and not just, but this is people streaming, going out there saying like, hey, throw in donations and so forth. We're not even running our full charity program of like charity auction and so forth. We've got more events coming. Felly just announced that he wants to run his Smolder event, which is basically people entertaining themselves with his hot sauces and tormenting themselves. So lots more to come, lots more opportunities to support our community, and we're really, really proud of what you all have been contributing so far. So a big, big thank you. Next question. Considering the history of fundraising, will FE support local and national medical or research foundations? Awesome question. I am happy to take this one. Just kind of speaking from a personal note here. I work in healthcare myself. I work supporting healthcare, a Ministry of Health funded organization. So I just want to note, I really appreciate the fact that people are acknowledging the needs of hospitals and other healthcare organizations right now, and our healthcare system in general. And just speaking in general, the donations that you're making to various hospital foundations and so forth, they absolutely have an impact in terms of acquiring necessary equipment, acquiring necessary PPE and so forth. But they also support some other ancillary things you might not think of. Things like, how do staff get to and from work safely? A lot of hospitals have been moving towards offering free parking. and they've actually been funding that from foundation donations. Alternately, if staff can't stay safely at home, there's certainly no shortage of hotel rooms right now. What funds that? Donations. So your contributions definitely make a huge difference. And, I really appreciate the fact that this is being called out and brought attention to. In terms of what we're doing as an organization, so one of the first things that we've actually identified, we actually found out in Olafin, our director of operations, in the course of his work, he actually found out that a local hospital was specifically looking for radios. Well, one of the purchases that we made this year with the intent of getting equipment that allows us to appropriately communicate with each other throughout the convention space was replacing our radios and getting some more modern ones that have better coverage. So here we are right now with this collection of about 50 plus radios or so that we don't have an immediate use for. Um, our plan is to donate those radios to the Sunnybrook Foundation, so that our healthcare workers, first responders, patients, and their loved ones can effectively communicate with each other during this time of need. And so that's one thing. That we're doing right now. We're still in conversations as to what additional support we will be providing going forward. But I want to thank and acknowledge Olafin for bringing this forward. Our board was totally supportive when it came to us over the past few days. And I'd also like to extend an invitation and a challenge to other organizations and individuals out there. If you're in a position where you have the resources, and it doesn't necessarily have to be cash, it could be other things that you have that hospitals need, please consider supporting them, because they absolutely can use it at this stage. So great question, and thank you so much for calling attention to that, because I think it's totally needed. Next item. Could we have a pie buffet? It's a good thing you can ask anonymous questions here. Does anyone want to speak to this?
I can speak to it. Can we have a pie buffet? The answer is I would definitely be interested in entertaining the idea if the hotel starts to offer a catering option. I could definitely see some sort of like special, super sponsor plus special treat where, everybody comes in, grabs a slice of pie or something. We every year we go through, we talk with the hotel, we look at what they're offering, and I haven't seen pie yet on the menu, but it might not hurt to ask. So the answer is maybe. This year, probably not. And when I say this year, I mean 2021. But future years, it's definitely, it's on the table as a possibility.
Aiden, anything to add to this? Drac, can I tempt you with donair pie?
Yes.
Yes.
That just sounds concerning, but yes. No, nothing to add.
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh.
To whoever submitted this, thank you for the levity. I think we all needed it. Next question. How badly was FE hurt by the cancellation? I'm happy to field this one if people are okay with that, because I think there was another question that kind of speaks specifically to financial pressures, specifically bankruptcy, that sort of thing. So as I believe I mentioned previously, the hotel has been really good with working with us throughout this entire process. They've been really accommodating. They really want to continue and maintain the relationship with us. This is a long-term relationship as well, so obviously it needs to work on both sides. They have refunded us substantially all of the prepayments that we had made for the 2020 event. They have not charged us any cancellation fees. any cancellation fees for doing so, and that has been substantially helpful to our financial position. However, being a CPA myself, being kind of the financial person for the organization, I will speak to some of the challenges that I see going forward. Just to kind of, in previous years, we've been fortunate to be in a position where at the beginning of the year, we set a budget that's generally based upon this is how many attendees we anticipate we're going to get. There have been a number of years where we have been pleasantly and wonderfully surprised and gotten more attendees than that estimate. In instances like that, we end up with a surplus at the end of the year. Our practice has been, whenever we're in that situation, to put some of that money aside into a reserve, effectively a rainy day fund. And the intention of that rainy day fund is to cover bumps in the road, so to speak. So for example, let's say there's a snowstorm that comes through Toronto in mid-March and a whole bunch of people don't come. That would hurt us, but with the rainy day fund, we'd be able to absorb that. Some significant equipment that we own gets damaged. We need to replace it. We can dip into the reserve fund and replace it. What it isn't intended to cover, and something that I know that we've alluded to in some of our previous messaging, is a full-on, under normal circumstances, a full-on cancellation of the event. So it is intended to cover a lot of different circumstances, and obviously this was one of the more significant ones, just because, as mentioned previously, we have a lot of expenses that we've incurred. We've bought a lot of swag. We stocked up on a lot of supplies, and we didn't actually end up running a convention to use them. So we do anticipate some pressures there. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is that the money that we have coming in the door is going to be working a little bit different this upcoming year, just because of the volume of rollovers that we have. This means that we're not going to have the same volume of cash coming in. We're not going to have the same funds coming in from our pre-registration process. I've been looking at kind of what our position looks like over the next 12 months, and I do anticipate that we are going to have some pressures as we move forward. But in terms of any like serious hurt that puts the continuity of our organization at risk, that's not something that we're anticipating at the moment.
So one comment that I did want to make on this as well, Scanny, the question itself, while there is a strong suggestion of financial element, there is also the human element as well. There's a lot of strain on the staff and attendees of our event. I would probably point out that there are a number of staff members and panelists in the YouTube chat right now, doing their level best to keep positive and keep listen to this session. I really do thank them for that, because I mean, they're as invested in this as I think we are in some ways. And while we were keeping an eye on all of the COVID-19 updates over a course of 3 or 4 weeks, and having to make these hard decisions, I think the decisions definitely did turn around and impact the attendees of our event and the staff of our event, because it does leave a very significant void of not having anything to do, and not having like that March plan that you had kind of went by the wayside, especially as the quarantine measures started kicking up. I went on vacation from my work, my actual day job, during right before FE, and was like, all right, I'm going to use this to deal with this situation, make sure that I'm doing my best, figure out financial things, all this other fun stuff, and then nothing. And sitting at home and trying to figure that out, and I'm sure I was not alone in that. So will this has this hurt us emotionally? I think yes. I think with the confidence that we had going into the event, the fact that we were very, very prepared, a number of other events that we socialize with and talk with would not have wanted to be in our situation where we were a week and a half out from con making the decision to shut it down. But I really do think that it was also an opportunity for the community and our team to come together and to support each other in that time. So I think as much as it did impact us, I think it was also an opportunity for us to feel part of something greater than ourselves.
Thanks, Aiden. Next question. Not a question, but I just wanted to extend my deepest gratitude and well wishes to all of you and everyone else involved in making FE what it is. We bless Timmy. Just
Much love to
bless.
Timmy.
Bless. Much love to Timmy, and much love to all of you that are sharing the same sentiments as well. And we really do appreciate just how supportive our community and our friends have been throughout this whole process. 2020 Conswag, can we buy any? If so, how and where might be the best for helping the convention? Or will 2020 swag be rolled into 2021 swag?
Conservation of resources. Yeah, for the most part, that we are making 2021 2020 version 2. So any of the swag that was part of 2020 will be rolled over to 2021. So the exact nuances of that are not yet determined, but it's essentially going to be the same listing of things that you were expecting for your 2020 registration. So that keeps it simple. Plus we've invested. We were a week and a half out. We had all the stuff, so we want to make sure that it was honestly we saw the biggest uptick in sponsors and super sponsor registration this past pre-registration phase. It tells to the work that our sponsor team did to find cool and interesting items and things that people were actually excited about. So definitely looking forward to providing that. And I love that there's a question here that says, how can I specifically buy it? And it's like, well, no, it's still there. It still exists. So register.
Thank you. All right. I think this question we have had the opportunity to address. It was specifically about, I think we addressed it when we were talking about Furnal Solstice as a 2-day event. Would we consider doing another event this year in the late summer/fall at the Westin? So again, I think we're just looking to see what the what sort of restrictions and what sort of public health guidelines we have in place in the late summer, in the fall at that time, and what our resources look like at that stage. So it's definitely an idea that we like. We just kind of want to see how things shake out before we make that call. Next question. Was the underlying reasoning behind the delay in canceling Furnal Equinox solely motivated by money and the concern over the viability of hosting future events? Yes, I've got that highlighted. So I think in order to respond to that, I need to kind of tie it back to two underlying things. And admittedly, this may not have been explicitly clear in some of the messaging that we put out there, especially in the day prior to our cancellation. So I hope this is an opportunity to set the record straight with regards to what our motivations are and what drives us in our decision making. So I think our key goal in all of this was to best consider our attendees' well-being and also to put us in the best possible position to serve our community going forward. Just to tie it back to organizational mission, our mission is to provide the best possible experience and the best possible visibility for our local fandom and also to transform our guests' lives for the better. That's our North Star in decision making, and that's a North Star that we aim to sustain both short term as well as long term. Unless it's, as alluded to earlier, unless it's literally impossible or illegal to put on an event, we have, many of us have been in the con running realm for more than 10 years, and we've socialized and had the opportunity to network with people who have been at it for much longer than we have. The counsel that we get is that cancellation is something to be avoided, very much so, because its consequences are catastrophic. We're not here for money necessarily, but we can't avoid the financial implications of what we do. And the reality is, if we don't have money, then we don't have resources to support the community and carry out our mission that we're talking about. The reality is we do need money to achieve our goals. And if we spend all of our money paying a cancellation fee to a hotel, that's not good stewardship of the trust that attendees have put in us. So we felt that we owed it to the 2,000 plus people who have put our trust in us for the past several years, and referring specifically to the 2,000 plus attendance at FE 2019, before we made such a decision. So as we're considering our attendee safety and well-being throughout this entire process, we did have a lot of help. We did have a lot of professional guidance. We did seek out, the con has had to engage legal counsel. We were looking to the advice of public health officials. And I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge our event consultant. You may have seen advertising for Andromeda Consultants in our con book. Eddie Chang is the proprietor of that organization. He supports fandom organizations all over the place, and he's been going through a lot of stress at the moment with many other organizations in a similar position, but his counsel was definitely very helpful as we move through this process. But just to kind of outline the things that we did, just to make sure that we are exposing rather, and exploring all possible alternatives before proceeding. In the lead up to the convention, as some of you may recall, we sent a message to registered attendees to educate around COVID-19. We were working very closely with the hotel with regards to their own plans to protect attendees. We made investments outside of our budget, as Aidan alluded to, in hand sanitizers and PPE for staff so that we could wipe down our equipment in Fursuit Lounge and other spaces throughout. We were actively referring to resources from Health Canada and the US Center for Disease Control. They did provide guidance with regards to mass gatherings, and said guidance did provide timelines and roadmaps in terms of how events could proceed and what precautions could be taken. We actively monitored updates from federal, provincial, and municipal health officials. We actually did make contacts with Toronto Public Health as well. And we were also exploring changes to our programming to best consider attendee safety as well. So we were actually looking at different room layouts to facilitate physical distancing, for example. So what this all leads to, obviously things escalated very quickly, and from March 11th, when the WHO declared a pandemic, we saw a very significant escalation in actions that were taken. By the time we reached March 13th, our goal, we had basically gotten to the point where we were asking, if we cancel, how do we put ourselves in a position where the organization is still here and in a position to put on events in future years? We, based on our counsel and the conversations that we were having, there were options available to us that made sure that we could continue, and that, as we've been talking about, we can put on an FE 2021 and future events as well. And we were able to find that. And honestly, once we had that way forward, the correct decision was very obvious.
It was unanimous, basically.
It was, yes. And that's worth noting as well. We were basically in a war room all day on the Friday. When it came down to making that final call to cancel, it was a unanimous decision from FE management and our board. It's worth noting as well, we do want to consider, and perhaps Aidan, you can speak a little bit more to this. We also had to consider the impact on staff as well. Aidan, I think you're a little bit closer to this because you were in contact with Vancouver's staff.
Yeah, no, as I mean, one of the things that I mentioned a little bit previously was we have an active communication with other events, not just Canadian events, but also Canadian events, and Vancouver, whose event happens shortly before ours. One of the struggles that they saw, and it's understandable that a number of people on their staff team were not comfortable from a safety perspective coming to the event given the circumstances. And we've actually had some people on our staff team prior to the event who indicated similar concerns. Either they were immunocompromised or they just weren't comfortable traveling or other such reasons. And those are absolutely valid. Not only that, dealers, panelists, a whole bunch of people, but for the purpose of this, I'm more talking about staff specifically. We did do a analysis of, where is the breaking point? Where is the point where we lose enough of our staff team to say, okay, we just can't run? That wasn't a cancellation reason for us this year. We had enough people who are like, no, you know what, we're comfortable, we can do this, we can work as a team, we can keep an eye out for each other. So I mean, we weren't dealing with that, but it was definitely something that was on our radar, and something we were being considerate of, not just from a perspective of what are we going to do with all these missing spaces, but making sure that we both respect the staffer's decision to say, no, I can't do this. I can't risk my loved ones, my family, myself, for something like this. As important as I feel it is personally, because I mean, your staff, you obviously feel some form of importance to it, but it's something that someone is entitled to make that decision, and we had to respect it. Had to and wanted to. Whereas Vancouver was fortunate and unfortunate, and it's always a different perspective, right? Because their event happened a week or two before ours was supposed to, and they managed with a
2 words, yeah.
reduced team, and they were able to get enough volunteers to make up for it. It's everyone has to deal with this in a different way because everyone's situation is slightly different. I applaud Vancouver for still being able to run their event, given the circumstances, and being able to find support in the community in the way that they did. Um, but yeah, it's the staff team and dealers and attendees and everything that it all factors into that equation. So I still don't know if I could answer it as well the second time around, but let's hope we don't have to have that for
Agreed.
any time in the near or distant future.
Yeah, definitely agreed. Thank you for that perspective from the staff point of view. So I hope that kind of illustrates what our motivations and what our guiding principles have been throughout all of this. Honestly, the right decision. I think it may have taken a little bit longer than some have hoped for us to get there, but ultimately, you know, we definitely have some really high stakes on all sides of the equation here. It's the well-being of our community. It's us still being able to do what we do and be able to provide that well-being through our event. And I think we took in the information that we needed to and made the correct decision at the end of the day. And we really still appreciate everyone's support throughout all of this. Um, with the mounting severity of COVID-19, is it responsible to be asking for donations for a convention when our health organizations will be in need of support? So I think this is something that we've had the opportunity to address. We aren't asking for donations in the sense of please give us cash. We've actually been really careful not to open up any specific donation links for us with that in mind, recognizing that there are others who really need our support. And we're really supportive of the need to support health organizations as well. And as I mentioned, with the donation of our radios, that is something that we're definitely wanting to address. Next question from Mallory at Fund for All. Will there be any guarantee for hotel room bookings for dealers for the new dates?
So this kind of factors into another question that I actually had on my radar as far as when the room block will open, etc. Currently, we don't have a specific set plan for the room block for 2021. Our typical time frame for room block is in the end of July, early August. That is typically when we open room blocks and registration process, which I believe our intention for this year is the same, but we'll keep you guys updated. Best places to watch out for that information are on Twitter and on Telegram for the announcement channel. With the specific question about dealers who were provided a room block room this year, we did do a advance provisioning of some rooms to dealers at the time when dealers were registered. That will take a little bit of investigation because we're kind of giving rooms for dealers ahead of time. We're also giving rooms for dealers when we're filling up any spaces that become available. So it'll be a very interesting process. But I'd like to think that I know specifically that dealers has indicated they want to recognize dealers who were already accommodated or brought in for 2020 in terms of 2021. So I believe that there will be conversations and discussions about those processes, and then those pieces of information will be sent out to the dealers who will be directly affected by that. So while I don't have a specific answer for you now, I can definitely say that the intention is to accommodate as best we can, and we will verbalize those kinds of steps or anything that we can offer as soon as we can, especially before like ideally before hotel block opens. But we made specific precautions to keep dealer rooms available separate to the general block this year. So my intention is that we would keep the same this year. So we shall see.
Thanks, Aidan. We are at about 4:05 right now. If we're all comfortable with taking, maybe I think we should have time for 2 or 3 more questions at this point. Something like that.
Yep.
Okay. This question, oh, shoot. I think the question was, will group contestants be available for the dance competition at some point in the future? Drac, I think programming is your game, so I'll leave that with you.
Sure. The answer is yes. We are expected to allow them at future dance competitions. So woohoo! Let's come on, get your game on. Let's do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was an easy one. No, don't do that again. If the pandemic lasts longer than expected, and large public events are still banned in 2021, what does that mean in terms of FE's going concern? Aidan, I think this kind of ties into one of our previous questions.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, generally speaking, because we are actively monitoring this, obviously. If it does turn into a circumstance where large scale events, where worst case scenario, large scale events are still put off in 2021, I would imagine we'd still be making the same kind of risk assessment, et cetera. Like if there is actually a ban, there's not a hell of a lot we can do about it. But we are I think I would speak for myself where I'd say I'm generally comfortable that if we were in that circumstance, we do have some repository of funds, as Scanny mentioned, that we could dip into to keep the lights on in the storage locker, I guess, for an extended period of time until we are once again allowed to have events. I'm very optimistic that we're doing our level best in Canada and in our own Toronto community to keep this under wraps. But it's definitely a fair question. We will figure it out as we go. Although that's not really an answer, but it's the same way the government's figuring out as they go too. So we're hoping that we'll be back to regular. Well, we'll be back to an event in next year, but we'll be back to regular schedule in the following year because we'll be able to cram everything into one year. But going forward, it'll be very interesting to us to see how things shape out. And we're going to do our best to be as reactive and as transparent with you folks as possible. So.
I will definitely support that as well. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of public health directives over the next little while, but I feel comfortable that we can cover off both situations. Number one, putting on a 2021 event as scheduled, and number two, if we need to kind of gear down and keep things and kind of move into kind of more dormant operations in terms of the convention for a while, that we can do that too. And number three being, we retask and we move more into supporting virtual events, investing more in those sort of initiatives. I think that's something that we can definitely something that we can look at pivoting and retooling towards as well. And we're more than open to any suggestions that people might have in order to facilitate that and still keep us relevant in the community. Okay. Ready. I'm registered for FE 2020. Can I change my registration level for 2021?
I think I can jump in on this. One of the things, this was actually asked in chat as well, but one of the things that we have done this year is, instead of initiating a whole new convention in our registration system that we just started using this year, we're basically moving that convention forward. So in reality, all of the registrations that are currently rolled over, they're still flexible. They can still be changed. If you reach out to our registration department, they can help you out. It's definitely something that an upgrade of your membership or what have you is easily edited in the background. So definitely something we can accommodate. Really appreciate people seeing the people saying, "Oh, I just want to upgrade my registration by one step to support the con." I totally appreciate that. Thank you so much. But it's definitely something that's relatively easily accomplished on our back end. So definitely kudos to that question, and absolutely understand.
Okay, thank you. Would any I think this will probably be the last question that we take, just so we're not running over people's time all over the
Saving
place.
the best for last.
Saving the best for last. Would any pre-cancellation 2021 plans, such as theme changes, etc., be rolled over to your 2022 plannings, or might some of these be used already for 2021?
I could answer this one.
Okay.
So, yes, one of the pre-cancellation plans would have been the added dockside space, and we've already kind of announced that. So, kind of takes away from the cool surprise at the end of closing ceremonies that we would have had. But it's going to be an awesome addition, I find. As for 2021 GOHs, they've already been selected, so that's a yes. We're hopefully going ahead with that. As for 2021 theme that we had planned out, the answer is yes. And have there been any hints as to what those might be? The answer is also yes. You just got to find them.
Okay, I wasn't even. Now this is like super mysterious now.
Ooh.
And with that, with Drac leaving us on that mysterious note where all of us are going to be searching for Easter eggs. Hey, Easter is next week, by the way. Easter eggs, oh ho.
That's a good point.
I'm so
Yeah.
tired of eggs with Animal Crossing. So tired.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair. Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. We've all been playing Animal Crossing over this last little while. Okay, so we're at 10 after 4, and with that, we've taken a little bit of extra time above and beyond the scheduled hour just to make sure that we could get through a few extra questions. Thank you again to everybody that submitted questions to this open forum session. If we didn't get to your question, our apologies. Please feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'd be more than pleased to answer those questions one-on-one. I would like to also thank Draculian and Aiden for taking time out of their, I mean, I would say busy schedules, but I think we're all a little bit less busy these days. But taking time out of their weekends nonetheless to answer your questions and make sure that you're all well informed. I really hope that this session puts you all at ease and gives you a sense of what our plans are going forward. We are definitely doing a little bit of watch and wait right now, but I think that's all of us can do at this point, and we do feel comfortable that whenever we're in a position to do so, we are absolutely ready to put on a convention again, and we are still here to serve you as an organization and as a convention in the meantime, no matter what. Um, the last wisdom advice that I would impart: please do take care of each other.
Mhm.
I'm really, really delighted to see some of the virtual socializing that has been happening over the past little while, whether it be Keep Calm Con or the Omega Nights or any other, or just people hanging out on Discord and audio and video chatting with one another. This is tough for all of us. Please take care of each other. Look out for your friends. If you got a fursuit, get in fursuit and go show some love and some friendship to people that might need it. Stay connected with one another. These are challenging times. These are new times for all of us, and we definitely are going to need each other more than ever in the days and the weeks ahead. So for those of you that are already doing that, thank you. Please keep doing it, and I wish nothing but health and good well-being for all of you over the next little while.
Absolutely. And just a quick opportunity now for those people who are in here, you obviously care about the event. If you're not already part of our Telegram chat, or at least our unofficial Telegram chat, which Timmy, who has presented a lot of the good questions tonight, a couple of good questions tonight, I'm really grateful to him for all his work, and the admins of that chat. It's a great place to talk to a lot of different people who all care about Furnal Equinox. While we didn't have an event, they've been keeping thriving and chatting and all that other jazz. 635 members this year, so pretty freaking impressive, considering the fact that last year at end of close of convention, we were just sitting at 500. So growing group of people, a lot of great people on there, a lot of great dealers, guests of honor, other stuff. Fantastic place to hang out if you're looking for a place to survive the hibernation of
Hibernation.
everything with. Yeah, so
Fair word. Drac,
Mhm.
any words on your end? Drac.
That's a tough question.
It's a tough question.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
And, and again,
Yeah.
thanks so much for all of the support. Like, it means a lot to us. It means a lot to the community, and it really shows, how we can all come together and get through this.
Thank you. Well said. So this session will be available as a replay on YouTube. For those that missed it, please feel free to point them to the link. We'll be here.
Kind, rewind.
Really? Well put. Yeah, our session will be here on YouTube. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And thank you all for your time this afternoon. Please stay safe, take care of each other, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Have a great afternoon.
Take care, all.